Yeah, hello and welcome back to day two of ConWorxx. And it's my great honor talking to this wonderful designer, to Matt Wolfe now. And Matt, how are you?
I'm doing very well. I feel like you're introducing someone else. I don't know who's wonderful, but I appreciate, the thought.
You really are. And there is already that Daniel Newman in the chat here, and he's saying, I'm on time for Matt Wolf. And that tells me a lot about how you see me, Daniel, because you are always late when I'm doing my Spielworks chat. And now Matt is there, you're on time. So I will remember this. But while squaring Circleville, as I already said several times today and yesterday, will be out if everything goes according to plan next week. This is not the topic of the talk for today. It's the second game in this Urban Evolution series by Matt. It's Raising Chicago. So, what is the background of this game? What is the background of Raising Chicago?
Well, that is a great question. Totally unexpected for this con here. And before we talk about that, well, the only reason Daniel's on time is because he's up next, so he knows he's got to prepare. Uh, anyway, so Raising Chicago, it's not about rebuilding Chicago after the Great Chicago Fire. That's what people initially think because
Yes.
that's the most famous, probably disaster that happened to Chicago. It's not about that. So Chicago was founded on the lake, or on the shore of Lake Michigan,
Mhm.
back in the 1700s. The reason why is because there was access to fresh water and there was this very large, just flat ground. And so it
Mhm.
made a great place to kind of found a city.
Mhm.
And now something that occurred that no one knew was going to occur was the as the city grew, there were sanitation problems, and this is something that the U.S. at this time was just starting to cope with because cities were
Mhm.
getting big enough that now sewage and was a problem. And in the 1850s, Chicago lost, I think it was something like almost 10% of its population to various diseases like dysentery and diphtheria and
Mhm.
things like that arise because of unsanitary conditions. So in 1856, they decided, and this is actually the first city in the U.S. To install a sewer system.
Wow.
They
Mhm.
looked at cities in Europe that had already kind of solved this problem. They saw how they did it. Cities like Paris, for example, they
Mhm.
said, okay, that's what we need to do. We need to install a sewer system to get all this waste away from the city. And so that's kind of what this game is about. Now, the interesting thing is because the city was founded on the shore of Lake Michigan, and the ground was only a few feet above Lake Michigan. And so, anytime that they would dig down into the ground, the water table was so high,
Mhm.
yet you basically couldn't dig down to do like foundations and basements, and they couldn't dig down to do a sewer.
Mhm.
So what they actually did, and all of this is true, and that's what makes this so fascinating, is that they actually put the sewers basically on what was at that time ground level, and they raised almost all of the buildings in Chicago to be above
Mhm.
the new sewer. So anywhere from 4 to 14 feet. Almost every building in Chicago, downtown Chicago, was lifted up or raised to that. So that's what we're doing in raising Chicago.
And this is truly fascinating. When you provided me with this story for the first time, I couldn't believe it actually. That the whole downtown of a series is being raised to a different and 4 to 15 feet even. So that's also a lot. So a very interesting background story. By the way, what we are seeing right now is the TTS module of the game, and of course, this is all prototype material. So it will look a little bit different, although Matt did a great job here. And Daniel is making one of his normal comments. I wanted to say stupid, but it's normal. Raising Chicago is actually about llamas. Yeah. No. So, Matt, what I think what people are interested in, if you go through the key mechanics of of the game at this point.
Sure. I figured what I'd do, I'll actually run through a round of the
Yeah,
game.
yeah, great
I
idea.
actually have mocked up that the first round was already done.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're going to be doing just kind of going through round two here.
Mm-hmm.
So the and this in addition to Uli having the caveat that none of the images in this TTS mod are final. This also hasn't yet gone through Spielworks development, so it's possible that some of the things that I'm talking about might change slightly as it goes through development. So keep that in mind. What I'm showing you may or may not be the final thing, just kind of depends.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what we're going to do here. So the way there's 8 rounds in the game, and each round has 4 phases. And on currently on player board is where I have all this kind of outlined,
Mm-hmm.
uh, which is there we go. That's a little closer. All
Mm-hmm.
right. So the first thing we're going to do, the first phase of the round is just quick setup phase. We're going to put these projects out. Each of these projects are one of the buildings in Chicago that was either raised in place, or there were some buildings that were actually moved out of the downtown into the outskirts, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit. These project cards are placed below each of the projects, like so.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last thing that everyone does, they're going to take 3 of their squares. They're going to put them on this turn order board over here. You'll notice that some players already have some squares on the board already. That's because they were left over from the previous round. This is round 2 of
Mm-hmm.
the game. So we're going to hopefully show a little bit of how it's going to change from round to round. There is a maximum of 5 bid squares that you can put out here on this board. So blue here just maxed out. If you would ever already have 3 or more bid squares on the board, you would only add squares until you have 5.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that is the first phase of the round.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty quick, just a quick setup. Put out these 5 projects, put out these 5 resource cards that are associated with them, and then fill up the bid board over here. All right, so phase 2 is project bidding. This phase is variable in turn order. The way it works is whoever has the most squares over here on the bid board, they are the active player.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, blue is the active player. So what happens is blue is going to take one of these, and they're going to put it on any of the square spaces on any of these cards over here that they would like. There are 3 resource types in Raising Chicago. There are jack screws, which were used to raise up buildings. Masonry and lumber, those were also used to provide temporary and permanent supports for the buildings. So these are kind of the 3 kinds of resources that they actually used during this time to be able to do all this work. So in this case, let's say blue's going to do this. That means that blue's going to get a jack screw because they're covering that up. So they would take a jack screw, put it on their player board over here. And what that also means is that currently blue is winning this project right here. If that would hold true at the end of the round, that means that blue would have to pay 2 lumber and 3 jack screws and 2 masonry in order to complete this project. As the game goes on, these costs escalate, so it'll become harder and harder, or I should say it'll cost more and more to complete projects, but you'll have some discounts and things like that you'll be able to apply. All right, so now that blue completed their turn, then we go back over here to the bid board and we see whose turn it is. Now you'll notice that red and blue and green all have the same number of tiles.
Mm-hmm.
So the way that you break the order is you look here on the reputation track, and whoever has the higher reputation will break the tie.
Mm-hmm.
And so we can see here, if I zoom way in, and if I kind of go at an angle, So you can see that blue has more reputation, and then in this case, yellow has more than red, who has more than green.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that blue it's still going to be their turn, so they're going to go ahead and take another one. They could choose to put it on this same bid card, resource card, get another resource, or they could, maybe they want to try to get a different one, try to double up. So maybe they want to try to go over here. So let's say they're going to go here. Maybe they feel like they need some masonry.
Mm-hmm.
They'll take the masonry. All right, and now we know that it's red's turn because red and green are tied for the most tiles, and red has more reputation. So red's going to do that. Maybe red really, really wants this first project. So
And
you'll notice that this first square on every card does not have any resources. So red gets nothing. The reason that doesn't have any resources is because the way you're going to resolve these in the next phase is whoever has more bid tiles on this resource card, they're going to win the project. But if there's ever the same number of resource tiles, it's going to be whoever is higher and further left on this card. So right now, red is winning this project. So that was possibly a jerk move by red right there. All right, so and we'll just say like green's going to go there, and now we come back, look at the bid board. Everyone's tied, so we go back to reputation order. So blue is definitely going to fight. They're going to do that, and now we come back. Now we know it's yellow. So yellow went hard in the previous round, so they only have 3 tiles this round. So now yellow is going to get to place a tile. Let's say yellow goes there, and now we know it's red. And I'm not taking any of the resources. We're just going to
yeah.
lock it up here. Let's say that maybe, yeah, green wants the only jack screw that's there. And we keep doing that until everyone has placed all of the tiles that are over here on the bid board. And here's red trying to sneak in and trying to really snag that. And finally, blue says, no way, blue's going to win this. And then yellow is going to do that. And red has a decision to make, and they're going to say, no, we're going to make sure that we claim this one. And finally, green takes the last one. They can put it wherever they want. If green would actually place here, green would win this, which they may or may not want to do, because then they would win 3 projects, but they would owe a lot. So they probably instead just want to get a freebie and not owe anything. All right. So that's the bid phase. Then once everyone has placed all their tiles, then what we're going to do, we're going to determine the winner for every project. And the winner gets any uncovered resources that are on the card. So in this case, in the first one here, there are no uncovered resources. Blue wins it. So blue doesn't get any extra resources. Over here for green, there is one uncovered resource. So green would get an extra masonry. So green would take a masonry and pop it on over to their board. Obviously, they'd have a lot more resources from the bidding during the previous phase. Here, the winner, everyone is tied that's on this card, but yellow is highest and furthest left on the card. So yellow wins this one. And yellow would get a, oh yeah, great TTS, thanks a lot.
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah. This is why Uli hates TTS.
Yeah, and my thick fingers.
Yeah. So yellow here would get that lumber that's uncovered. Oh my God, stop doing that, TTS. All right. Anyway. All right, so then the next card over here, red wins that one. Red would get that unclaimed jack screw or uncovered jack screw. And then finally, no one wanted to compete with green over here, so green would get all 3 of these masonry, which they can use to pay for possibly the projects that they have won this round. All right, so we've determined that. We've determined the winner for each of the projects, and the winner has gotten any uncovered resources. Then, now we're in order here from 1 to 5. The winner is going to pay for the project, hopefully, and then place it out here on the board and get some resources. So the first thing that's going to happen is red didn't win this. Red is going to return their tiles back to the bid board. This is how you wind up with tiles at the end, which could allow you to have more tiles for the next round. And then blue is they're going to pay the 2 lumber, 3 jack screws, and 2 masonry. And we'll just pretend that they have it, so I won't
Mm-hmm.
go through the exercise of putting those out. They're going to get the project reward. So the project reward is at the top of these little projects. In this case, that's a favor token, which is right now it's a key. I don't know why it's a key. I'm not going to lie to you. I think I had some key components that I just threw into the prototype, the physical prototype. So I was like, I don't know, key to the city, maybe. I don't know. We'll figure out what that really is when we when we have the real published thing. Um, so what the favor tokens are used for later in the game when you start getting low on resources, you can spend a favor token to pay for all of a single category of resource. All right, so that's pretty good one to get. So then what you do, you flip over the projectile, which has a building on the back. This is the actual building that, or I should say, some of these are the actual buildings in Chicago at this time that you are going to raise in place.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're going to place it out here on the board wherever you would like. Let's say that blue wants to place it here.
Mm-hmm.
So all the bid tiles that blue placed on that card go on a stack under the project. So that's how far up this building was raised, basically, off the ground. So there's 3 levels. You'll also notice these banners here at the tops of the columns of the city. You're going to increase your resource track for that type when you place a project. So what that means here is, so blue is going to increase their lumber track.
Mm-hmm.
What these tracks do, eventually you're going to start to unlock permanent discounts. So the next time that blue would be able to increase their lumber track, they're going to unlock this permanent discount, which means that every time for the rest of the game, they can pay 1 less lumber anytime they need to pay lumber.
Yeah.
The other thing you get is when all of your tokens meet a column, you get what's at the top of the column. So in
Mm-hmm.
this case, you get a wild resource. The top hat is reputation, of course, because that's what a top hat would be.
Mm-hmm.
The final thing that happens when you resolve a project is you take this resource card, you're going to add it to your company board, slide down any other ones, like so. And what that does is at the end, the final phase of every round is you are going to run your company and you're going to get whatever is pictured in the round space on the card. So at the end of this round, blue is going to be getting 2 wild resources, which is awesome because then you don't have to worry so much about getting specific resources to pay for stuff.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So then the rest of these, we're going to just jump through real fast here. And so green wins this one. So and green wins it with 2 levels. They get a wild resource that we're not going to worry about. We're going to flip that over. We're going to place this. Oh, I don't know. Let's say that green wants to try to get over here into Ward 4. So they're going to put it right here in the corner. Now you may notice that there is a pre-printed wild resource. There are a couple spaces in the city that have pre-printed resources, so you will just get those immediately. So green would immediately get one of these wild resource tokens that they can spend. They can spend it on their next win or whenever they need to.
Mm-hmm.
They get that card like so. All right, so then as we said, yellow is winning this one, so green returns that, blue returns that. Yellow gets this awesome favor token, and they would pay their resources. So let's pretend that yellow couldn't pay one of these. They didn't have enough resources.
Okay.
If you don't have enough resources, you have to move down the poverty track down here, which is going to cost you points at the end of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the early, if you only do it once or twice, it's not too bad. But if you keep not having enough resources to pay, it's going to be very penalizing. I would recommend, as the designer, don't do that. But it's pretty difficult to go high on that track as long as you are bidding smartly when you're putting your bid to. And yellow here, so let's say yellow wants to go right here in the middle. Yellow covered up a top hat, which means they gain a reputation. They currently have the most reputation, so they're going to get all the tiebreakers for the next round, which could be pretty darn good. That clutch play, yellow. Good job. All right, so now we come to this one. Red wins this one. So yellow returns their 2 bid squares over here. Now, you may have noticed that this project looks a little different. It
Yes.
does not have a bonus on it. And it has this M on it, mysterious. M is for mysterious. No, M is for a move project. So some of the buildings in downtown Chicago at this time were wood, and what they wanted to do, basically like the city council, they wanted to make Chicago a prestige city. So they wanted buildings that were stone and basically different types of masonry. And so any of the wood buildings that were downtown at this time, they actually moved them to the outskirts of the city. And so what happens here, instead of putting this project in the middle, you're actually going to move it out here to the outskirts. So this one, you are going to get one of these empty lot tiles, which are a one-time bonus that you can take anytime you are the active player. Let's say that yellow wants to take this one, let's say. So take all bonuses on all cards and project area. So at any point, yellow could play that, and that means they would get all the bonuses that are in that round space on cards in the project area. So obviously, or I'm sorry, red. Red is the winner of this one. So obviously, red will not do that until there's 5 cards in the project area. So they're not. They might do that next round. Now, the second part of this is you get to place one of these prestige buildings out into the city. Prestige buildings, as you may guess from the name, are super prestigious. They are going to grant victory points to all the buildings that are around them, depending on the arrows. So, for example, if I take this one, and you can rotate these however you like, if I would leave it in this orientation, that means whatever building winds up here, whatever player owns it, they're going to get 3 points. And whatever building is here, whatever player owns that, they'll get 3 points. However, red's going to rotate it like that. So they'll be getting 3 points at the end of the game for their own building. And then someone can put a building here, and they will get the 3 points that prestige building will grant. And then, of course, red would go up on their masonry track, and they would also go up on their jack screws track because they built a prestige building. There are 8 basically move projects in the game, and so you'll have kind of 8 prestige buildings that will come out for endgame scoring. All right, and then the very last one here, same deal. Green wins this one. They would get a wild resource. They would place this out there somewhere, and let's say green does this. So green would move up the the jack screw track. Green would get this card and advance add that to their company. All right, so what this means, you may have noticed there are these tokens on the board here. When these are neighborhood tokens. When a neighborhood is complete, which means that all 4 building plots around that token have buildings on them, whoever has the most levels of buildings around that are going to get that token. So in this case, you can see that blue has 4 levels, red has 2, and green only has 1. So that means that blue is going to win this. They get this. This is an immediate bonus. This particular one is a company extension. So they're going to take this company extension board. They're going to put it out here. And that means, and this is company extension boards are awesome. So that means eventually these cards are going to slide down. So they're going to get the resource on this card for 1 extra round instead of normally it would fall out of your company at that point. And so that's how the project resolution phase works. That's phase 3 of the round. And then phase 4 is just simply every player, you do this simultaneously, you get the resources that are on the circle spaces of all the cards in your company. Once all players have done that, then we move to the next round. We would do setup again. You'd put out the next 5 projects, the next 5 resource cards. Everyone adds 3 bid tiles to the bid board here, and we do it again. You want me to cover some of the endgame scoring real quick, Uli?
Yes, but I'd like to mention 2 or 3 things. When I revisited the game recently, so I hadn't played it for quite some time, so I played it again. What I noticed is that, and I like this a lot, that the mechanical complexity isn't that high. It's a really pretty short rules, but there are several mechanics, individual ones, that blend together very well. So first, this bidding mechanism is nice, but then it's a majority type thing on the project cards. But very interesting, so that the, you could say, the most valuable spot isn't the most valuable spot because you're not getting any resource over there. So I like this a lot. And then you have also, which I particularly like, is this 3D effect. If you can turn into this neighborhood thing which is already covered, you see it's not um, uh, there are two blue ones and one red one and one green one. No, it's actually the height of all these, how many levels are in there. And this is also a very simple and very good mechanic, but also it looks great on the physical table. So this is really very well done. And all the subsystems work nice. And this game is so true to its topic that I'm really amazed. So I think this is great stuff, Matt. So if you could move to the end game scoring, I'd really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So, endgame scoring. There's a couple places where you're going to score points. So one thing that I already mentioned is the prestige building. So those are all endgame scoring. There are two types of arrows. You may have noticed that some of the prestige buildings have a double arrow. That means that every building that is in that direction will score those points. So if this building was, say, I don't know, let's say that someone placed it here, and let's say they rotated it, that means well, actually, they couldn't do that. That's illegal. It has to be in a purple space. Let's say they put it here. That means that all three of these buildings, and eventually whatever buildings go here, they would all score 3 points at the end of the game. So if you're pretty clever with how you place your buildings, you can rack up a lot of points from the prestige buildings. Another place you're going to get points is for area control. So there are 9 places. There are 4 wards in the central board here, and I just realized in my TTS prototype here, I dropped the numbers. That's how weird. So this is like Ward 1, this is Ward 2, this is Ward 3, and that's Ward 4. So whoever has the most levels within a ward, not the most buildings, but the most levels, you're gonna get the top number of points, and whoever has second most, you get the second most. Similar thing up here. For this one, it's going to be whoever has the most levels in this row, and then this is most levels in this row. This one here is the most levels within this yellow section, and the most levels within this pink section. And then over here, whoever has the most bid tiles left on the bid board at the end will get that token.
Yeah.
The main other way you're going to score points at the end is from city council people. You may have noticed that there are secondary colors on these cards. So this is a gray card, and there are down here, I think yellow has an orange. So there are four colors, and there are some wilds as well. So each of these city council people correspond to a color. So that means this city council person is orange. So in a 4-player game, at the end of the game, you qualify to score for, in this case, orange, if you have at least 3 orange cards in your company. And you keep all the cards that you collected during the game, even if they aged out. So in this case, assuming you had 3 orange cards, you would get 2 victory points for every favor token you have left over at the end of the game. If you had at least 3 pink or magenta cards, you would get 2 points for every building that you put in Ward 3, and that's why it's pretty important that I put the numbers on the main board. If you had at least 3 turquoise cards, you would get a 1 point for every prestige building that you bid. And then if you have at least 3 gray, you get 1 victory point for every neighborhood tile that you won during the game. And in addition, if you get enough, if you go really deep into a color, in this case, in a 4-player game, if you have 5 cards of a certain color, then you can double your points that you score from that category. So there's you mentioned, Uli, that not only do you have to kind of worry about when you're bidding like getting resources that you need to pay for stuff, but you
Yeah.
also have and possibly worrying about the resource you want to get from running your company, but you also want to pay attention to the color to
Mm.
make sure that you are getting something that's going to score points for you at the end of the game.
Yeah.
And then the last one here, I know we're running out of time. There are 4 endgame projects that are randomized for each game. These just happen to be the 4 that came out in this example. These are going to be points you're going to get depending on how well you either put buildings in that pattern, or in this one here, this is the 4 corner spots of the board. The more corner spots you have, the more points you'll get. So this you'll get 3, 6,
Yeah.
12, or 18 points depending on how many buildings you have in the corner. This is just groups of 4 buildings in a square, and some of our classic Tetris shape here, and
Mm.
etc. So yeah, that's pretty much it for endgame scoring. There's 1 or 2 other things, but those are the core of the endgame scoring.
Yeah, thank you very much, Matt. I think this was a very nice presentation, although it's not easy to follow this. And Kenny B. Blue is mentioning with the TTS version and then zooming in and zooming out, it's very difficult to follow it but this is of course a prototype thing here. Matt, you're saying sorry. I went a little fast in my explanation. That's okay. We are here under some time constraints, and I think you did a great job. But actually, when I revisited the game, I did not use the TTS module. I used the physical prototype that I'm having, but because like you, Canopy Blue, it's the same thing. I prefer the physical thing. It makes it easier for me to understand what I see. So I totally get this. But this, yeah, because we are a little bit late and I need to take my break now. Thank you very much, everybody here. And Pludias is saying thank you, Matt. I think you did a great job here, and I'm really looking forward to working on this game. Topic wise, great, and mechanics also very nice. So, yeah, great stuff. And
Yeah. Do you want to mention what your estimated timeline is for this, real quick?
hopefully, we can make it for next year. This is what is planned. I said this several times today. Shipping situation, production
Yeah.
issues. Can we get stuff in time? You never know. But this is actually what we are planning here, and yeah, we'll see. Uh,
Yeah.
interesting.
Cross your fingers, you know.
Interesting times, and yeah, first Circle, then we get Chicago. Yeah, hopefully, if you have an interest in this game, we really appreciate this. And in 12 minutes already, we have that brute Daniel Newman here as the guest for London Necropolis Railway. Thank you, Matt, and thank you all.
Thanks, Uli. Yeah.
Bye
Thanks,
bye.
everyone.
Bye.